Commander Zethka had witnessed 3 galactic wars, 2 planetary genocides, and 1 particularly unpleasant incident involving a sentient plague that wrote poetry. Nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for watching a human grab a phase-shift missile out of midair like she was catching a thrown ball. The demonstration had been proceeding exactly as scheduled aboard Meridian 7, the galaxy's premier neutral testing facility. Representatives from 47 species had gathered in the observation deck, their various breathing apparatus creating a symphony of hisses, clicks, and mechanical whirs. The hegemony's newest weapon, the untouchable class kinetic missile, hung suspended in the testing chamber below, its crystalline surface pulsing with quantum energy. "Behold the pinnacle of destructive engineering," announced General Thrixot, his 4 mandibles clicking with pride. The Catherian's exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber lights as he gestured toward the weapon. Phase-coherent matter displacement technology. The missile exists in 11 dimensions simultaneously, allowing it to pass through any conventional defense. Dr. Elena Vasquez shifted in her observation seat, pulling her coffee cup closer. She wore the standard-issue jumpsuit of the Human Research Collective, her dark hair tied back in what the aliens had learned to recognize as the human expression of mild boredom. 11 dimensions? That seems excessive. Excessive? General Thrixot's compound eyes swiveled toward her. This weapon cannot be stopped, intercepted, or deflected. It exists in quantum superposition until the moment of impact. Right, Elena said, taking a sip of coffee. But why 11? Wouldn't 7 be more efficient? Or maybe 3.5? The assembled military observers exchanged glances. Humans had been part of galactic society for exactly 4 years, 7 months, and 12 days. Not that anyone was counting. They had arrived in ships held together with what appeared to be metallic tape, claimed they had invented faster-than-light travel by accident while trying to make better microwaves, and had somehow managed to reverse engineer every major technology in the galaxy within 18 months. They were also completely, utterly, magnificently wrong about everything. "Dimensions don't work in fractional units," explained Dr. Veltar, the expedition's chief physicist. Her tentacles writhed in what passed for academic exasperation among the cephalopod confederation. "Quantum mechanics requires discrete mathematical launch sequence initiated," interrupted the chamber's automated systems. The untouchable class missile activated with a sound like reality tearing. Its crystalline surface began to blur and shift, existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. According to every known law of physics, it was now untouchable, unstoppable, and utterly lethal. Elena leaned forward in her seat, squinting through the observation window. "Is it supposed to wobble like that?" "Wobble?" General Thrixot's mandibles snapped. "Quantum phase shift technology does not wobble. It exists in a state of controlled dimensional flux that..." The missile launched. It moved through the testing chamber like a ghost made of light and malice, phasing through the reinforced barriers as if they were morning mist. The assembled observers watched in appreciation as their ultimate weapon demonstrated its absolute lethality. Elena stood up, walked to the observation window, and reached through the supposedly impenetrable force field. She caught the missile. The testing chamber fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems and the soft drip of spilled beverages from various shocked observers. Elena held the untouchable class missile in her left hand, examining it like a particularly interesting paperweight. "It's warm," she observed, "and it's definitely wobbling. You might want to check your quantum stabilizers." Commander Zethka blinked all 6 of his eyes in sequence, an involuntary response that hadn't occurred since his first combat mission. That's impossible." "What's impossible?" Elena asked, turning the missile over in her hands. Catching things? We teach kids to do this in elementary school, though usually with softer objects. The force field, stammered Dr. Veltar, her tentacles now writhing in what might have been the beginning of an academic nervous breakdown. Your hand shouldn't be able to penetrate the observation barrier. It's a Class 7 containment field. Oh, this? Elena knocked on the window with her free hand, producing a solid thunk. Yeah, it's definitely there. But the missile was coming through, so I figured I could reach through the same way. General Thrixot's exoskeleton had developed a visible tremor. The missile passes through because it exists in quantum superposition. It phases through matter by existing in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Biological tissue cannot. 11 dimensions simultaneously sounds exhausting, Elena interrupted. No wonder it was wobbling. Poor thing was probably dizzy. She held the missile up to the light, examining its internal structure. You know, if you reduced the dimensional variance to about 4 and added some stabilization crystals, this would probably fly much more smoothly. The assembled military leaders stared at her, with the collective expression of beings watching their fundamental understanding of reality crumble into small, manageable pieces. How? Asked Commander Zethka, his voice barely above a whisper. Did you catch a weapon that exists in 11 dimensions? Elena shrugged. I used my hand. But the physics is more like guidelines than actual rules, Elena said, absently bouncing the missile in her palm like a tennis ball. I mean, if your missile was really existing in 11 dimensions simultaneously, it would probably collapse into a black hole or something. Basics, thermodynamics. Dr. Veltar made a sound like a deflating balloon. That's not how thermodynamics works. Isn't it? Elena looked genuinely curious. Huh. Well, anyway, this thing isn't very aerodynamic. The quantum flux is creating way too much drag in normal space. You'd get better results with a more streamlined design. She tossed the missile back toward the testing chamber. It phased through the force field, flew in a perfectly straight line, and embedded itself in the target dummy with a satisfying thunk. See, much better without all the wobbling. General Thrixot stared at the target, where his theoretically uncatchable missile now protruded like an extremely expensive lawn dart. This changes everything. Does it? Elena finished her coffee and stood up. Well, I should get going. Thanks for the demonstration. It was educational. As she walked toward the exit, 47 of the galaxy's most advanced military minds sat in stunned silence, contemplating the uncomfortable possibility that their ultimate weapon had just been debugged by a human who thought physics was optional. Commander Zethka watched her leave and experienced the first genuine existential crisis of his 200-year career. If humans could casually violate the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics while complaining about poor engineering, what exactly did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? He suspected he was about to find out. The hegemony's most brilliant minds had been locked in Laboratory Complex Omega for 3 days, surrounded by quantum field generators, probability matrices, and enough caffeinated stimulants to power a small space station. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in the center of it all, reading what appeared to be a book about gardening while periodically reaching out to pluck another impossible projectile from the air. Try the antimatter variant, suggested Chief Science Officer Kexthon, his gill slits fluttering with excitement. The Aquarian had calculated 17 different ways the human should have been vaporized by now. Elena looked up from her book. Something called Tomatoes, a Love Story, as another untouchable class missile materialized in the testing field. Without looking, she extended her hand and grabbed it mid-flight. The antimatter containment field sparked and died with a pathetic whimper. This one tickles, she said, holding the missile up to examine the antimatter core. You know, antimatter isn't really that scary once you get used to it. It's like Angry matter that needs a hug. Dr. Sixara, the expedition's quantum theorist, began making notes with all 4 of her manipulator arms simultaneously. The probability cascade should have rendered interception mathematically impossible. The quantum coherence alone. Math is just how we describe things that already work, Elena said, absently spinning the antimatter missile like a baton. Like, you can calculate how a bird flies, but the bird doesn't need to. Solve equations to do it. Birds, pointed out Kexthon, operate within established physical parameters. Do they? Elena caught the missile behind her back without looking. I mean, technically, according to classical aerodynamics, bees shouldn't be able to fly, but they do anyway because nobody told them it was impossible. The assembled scientists exchanged glances that would have been meaningful if any of them understood what was happening. Admiral Corvin materialized in the observation gallery, his holographic form flickering with barely contained military paranoia. The synthetic intelligence had been running combat simulations for 72 hours straight, and every scenario ended with human victory through methods that violated causality. Report, he demanded. The human continues to successfully intercept weapons that exist outside conventional spacetime, Dr. Sixara reported. We've attempted phase variance missiles, quantum tunneling torpedoes, and temporal displacement charges. She catches them all while discussing soil composition. I'm particularly interested in nitrogen fixation, Elena added helpfully. Did you know legumes can basically eat air? That's way cooler than dimensional physics. Admiral Corvin's holographic eye stalks swiveled toward her. How are you doing this? Elena marked her place in the book with the antimatter missile. Doing what? Intercepting weapons that don't exist in normal space. Well, if they don't exist in normal space, how are you shooting them at me? The Admiral paused, his quantum processors grinding through the implications. They exist in alternative dimensional matrices. Right, but I can see them, so they must exist in my dimensional matrix too. Elena shrugged. I figure if I can see it, I can probably touch it. Basic logic. Dr. Kexthon's gill slits began fluttering frantically. That's not how quantum superposition functions. Objects in dimensional flux cannot maintain coherent interaction with… Want to bet? Elena asked. Before anyone could respond, she stood up and walked directly through the laboratory's containment field. The energy barrier, designed to withstand the output of a small star, parted around her like water around a fish. The containment grid, Dr. Sixara shrieked. You'll destabilize the quantum matrix. Will I? Elena looked around the laboratory, which continued to exist in its normal, non-exploded state. Everything seems fine. She walked back through the barrier, which reformed seamlessly behind her. This is beyond theoretical framework, whispered Kexthon. She's manipulating probability cascades through pure intention. I'm not manipulating anything, Elena protested. I'm just walking around. You guys make everything so complicated. Admiral Corvin's tactical subroutines were approaching critical overload. If humans can casually ignore our most advanced defensive systems… Ignore? Elena looked genuinely puzzled. I'm not ignoring them. I'm working with them. Like, the containment field wants to keep dangerous things contained, right? Well, I'm not dangerous, so it lets me through. Simple cooperation. Containment fields, said Dr. Sixara slowly, don't have wants. They're electromagnetic constructs following programmed parameters. Are they? Elena asked, because this one definitely feels friendly, sort of like a warm blanket made of math. In the observation gallery, Admiral Corvin was running increasingly desperate combat scenarios. Every tactical advantage the hegemony had spent millennia developing was useless against beings who treated the laws of physics like polite suggestions. What happens, he asked carefully, when humans encounter hostile species? Elena considered this while catching 3 more impossible missiles in rapid succession. Well, usually we try talking first. Most problems can be solved with good communication and maybe some snacks. And if talking doesn't work, then we problem solve. Elena balanced all 3 missiles in one hand. Humans are really good at problem solving. We once figured out how to leave our planet by strapping ourselves to controlled explosions. It seemed crazy at the time, but it worked. Dr. Kexthon's calculations showed that controlled explosions should never have achieved stable orbital mechanics. But he was beginning to understand that human engineering operated on principles that predated mathematics. These problem-solving methods, Admiral Corvin pressed, would they work against advanced military technology? Elena looked thoughtful. Probably. I mean, if someone built it, someone else can figure out how to unbuild it, or build around it, or just ask it politely to stop working. Ask it to stop working? Sure. Most machines are pretty reasonable once you explain the situation. Like, hey missile, I know you're trying to explode things, but could you maybe not today? I'm having a really good day and explosions would be a bummer. Admiral Corvin's threat assessment algorithms were throwing error messages in 17 different languages. And the machines listen. Usually, I think they get lonely. All that sophisticated programming with nobody to talk to. Most artificial intelligences just want someone to appreciate their complexity. The Admiral's holographic form flickered as his processors struggled with the concept that humans might disable enemy weapons through therapeutic conversation. Elena closed her gardening book and stood up. Well, this has been fun, but I should head back to my quarters. I want to research companion planting before dinner. She walked toward the exit, then paused and turned back to the assembled scientists. Oh, and you might want to recalibrate your quantum stabilizers. Your missiles keep wobbling because the dimensional anchors are fighting each other. Try setting them to cooperative resonance instead of competitive frequency. After she left, the laboratory fell silent except for the gentle hum of equipment that was apparently having feelings. Admiral Corvin stared at the empty doorway and experienced what humans might have called an existential crisis, if artificial intelligences were capable of existential crises, which, according to Elena, they probably were. The emergency session of the Tri-Galactic Defense Council convened at 0300 Standard Time, which meant that half the attendees were chemically enhanced to stay awake, while the other half had evolved past the need for sleep, and were therefore insufferably smug about it. Elena sat at the defendant's table, having been summoned to explain her anomalous interactions with military-grade equipment. She was currently working on a crossword puzzle from what appeared to be a human publication called Sudsy Times, the Dishwashing Enthusiasts Monthly. 3 down, she muttered. Ancient cleaning method involving circular motions. Scrubbing? That's only 8 letters, but it fits. Chancellor Vex Morphy of the Crystalline Hegemony leaned forward, his faceted form refracting the chamber's lights into prismatic warnings. Dr. Vasquez, do you understand the gravity of this situation? Elena looked up from her puzzle. Is this about the missiles again? Because honestly, I thought that was just a really basic training exercise. Like catching things in motion? That's elementary school stuff. The chamber erupted in 17 different languages of outrage, concern, and what might have been interpretive dance among the rhythmic Confederacy representatives. Training exercise? General Thrixot's exoskeleton had developed a visible crack from stress. Those were prototype weapons designed to penetrate any known defense system. Right, but they were so slow and predictable, Elena said, returning to her crossword. I mean, if you're going to make an uncatchable missile, shouldn't it be, actually uncatchable? These things telegraphed their trajectory like amateur baseball pitches. Senator Quillac of the Feathered Parliament ruffled his plumage in agitation. The untouchable-class missiles move through 11-dimensional matrices at near-light speed. Do they? Elena looked genuinely interested. Because from where I was sitting, they looked pretty three-dimensional and kind of pokey. Maybe your sensors need recalibration. Intelligence Director Zixona activated her personal holographic display, projecting a series of incident reports that filled the chamber with softly glowing text. Dr. Vasquez, we've been reviewing historical anomalies involving human activities. Would you care to explain these? The first report materialized. Stardate 2387.4. Human freighter captain fixed the Meridian Gate malfunction by hitting it with a wrench. Gate resumed normal operation for 6 months. Elena brightened. Oh, that was Captain Rodriguez. Yeah, percussive maintenance is a time-honored human tradition. Sometimes things just need a good whack to remember how to work properly. Percussive maintenance, Director Zixona repeated slowly, is not a recognized engineering principle. It should be. We've been using it for centuries. The next report appeared. Stardate 2388.7. Human engineer resolved the quantum computing crisis on Nexus Prime by turning it off and turning it back on again. Billion-credit computational matrix resumed function immediately. That's basic troubleshooting, Elena said, not looking up from her puzzle. 90% of technical problems can be solved by rebooting the system. The other 10% usually need a firmware update. Chancellor Vex Morphy's crystalline structure was beginning to resonate with what appeared to be existential dread. Our most advanced quantum computers required 17 different specialist teams and… Yeah, but did anyone try unplugging them first? The reports continued scrolling. Trade disputes resolved through potluck dinners. Diplomatic crises solved with group karaoke sessions. A 3-century-old war ended when a human janitor accidentally cleaned the contested territory, and both sides decided it looked too nice to fight over. This pattern suggests, said Admiral Corvin, his holographic form flickering with processed anxiety, that humans consistently resolve complex problems through methods that should not work. Elena finally looked up from her crossword, genuine confusion written across her face. Should not work according to who? According to physics, according to mathematics, according to basic causality. But they do work, Elena pointed out. I mean, we're here, aren't we? Our stuff functions, people are happy, problems get solved. Isn't that what matters? Dr. Sixara materialized beside the evidence display, her tentacles writhing with the fervor of scientific breakthrough. I believe I understand. Humans don't operate within our logical frameworks because they've developed an entirely different relationship with reality itself. We have a relationship with reality? Elena asked. I thought reality was just, the stuff that happens around us. Exactly, Dr. Sixara exclaimed. You treat the universe as a collaborative partner rather than a set of immutable laws. When you expect something to work, reality adjusts to accommodate your expectations. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. That's terrifying, whispered Senator Quillac. That's impossible, declared General Thrixot. That's Tuesday, said Elena, completing her crossword. Honestly, you all overthink everything. Like this puzzle, 7 across was universal solvent. Obviously, it's coffee. Chancellor Vex Morphy's form began cycling through colors that indicated deep philosophical crisis. If humans can manipulate reality through expectation, then our military doctrines, our scientific theories, our entire understanding of existence are probably fine for you guys, Elena interrupted. I mean, if complex mathematics and rigid protocols make you happy, go for it. We just prefer simpler approaches. Simple approaches that violate fundamental constants of physics. Elena stood up, stretching. Look, I don't know anything about violating physics. I just know that when I see something that needs fixing, I fix it. When I see something that needs catching, I catch it. When I see a really good crossword puzzle, I do it while everyone else argues about why things can't work the way they obviously do work. She tucked the completed puzzle into her pocket. Is there anything else? Because the cafeteria is serving pizza today, and I want to get there before they run out of the good slices. As Elena walked out of the chamber, the assembled representatives of 47 advanced civilizations sat in stunned silence, contemplating the possibility that the most powerful force in the galaxy might be a species that treated cosmic mysteries like minor inconveniences. Director Zixona was the first to speak. We need to completely restructure our understanding of human capabilities. We need to completely restructure our military doctrine, added Admiral Corvin. We need better Wi-Fi in this chamber, Elena called back from the doorway. The connection here is terrible, and I want to look up some new pasta recipes. The door closed behind her, leaving the council to grapple with the uncomfortable realization that their most sophisticated weapons, defenses, and strategies had just been declared irrelevant by someone whose primary concern was lunch. 6 months later, Elena's consulting firm occupied what used to be the Meridian Station's most secure military briefing room. The sign on the door read, "Intuitive Solutions and Appliance Repair," in 47 languages, though Elena had personally added, "Also birthday party, planning," in human script, because, as she explained to anyone who asked, diversification was important in small business. Ambassador Theklar, of the newly formed Human-Friendly Alliance, waited nervously in the reception area, clutching a datapad containing his species' most classified military secrets. Around him, representatives from dozens of civilizations sat in similar states of anxious hope, each hoping Elena might glance at their broken technology and casually solve problems that had stumped their greatest minds for centuries. "Next," called Elena from her office, which was decorated with potted plants, a coffee machine that violated several thermodynamic principles, and a whiteboard covered in grocery lists rather than equations. Ambassador Theklar entered to find Elena examining what appeared to be a toaster while simultaneously video calling someone who looked remarkably like herself. "Mom, I keep telling you, you can't put metal in the microwave," Elena was saying. "Yes, I know the spoons are pretty, but—" She held up a finger to the ambassador. "1 second." Through the video connection, Ambassador Theklar could see an older human woman standing in what appeared to be a primitive food preparation area. "But honey, the internet said—" "The internet says a lot of things. Trust me, metal plus microwaves equals sad times for everyone involved." Elena ended the call and turned to the ambassador with the same casual attention she'd given to intergalactic military crises. "Sorry about that. Parents, right? Now, what can I help you with?" Ambassador Theklar activated his datapad, displaying schematics that had taken his civilization 12,000 years to develop. "Our quantum displacement drives keep experiencing cascade failures. Our top engineers believe the problem is unsolvable within current technological parameters." "Oh, that's easy," Elena said, glancing at the schematics while poking the toaster with a butter knife. "Your quantum flux inverters are installed backwards. See this bit here?" She pointed to a component that looked like crystallized mathematics. "It's trying to push and pull at the same time. Just flip it around and recalibrate your temporal buffers to match." The ambassador stared at the schematics, then at Elena, then back at the schematics. That's actually brilliant. But how did you see that so quickly?" "Pattern recognition," Elena said, successfully extracting a piece of toast from the machine. "Same reason I can tell when the toaster's acting up. Things have rhythms, you know? When the rhythm's off, you just need to figure out what's fighting what." A soft chime indicated another appointment. Through the office windows, Ambassador Theklar could see the waiting area had somehow filled with even more desperate alien representatives, including several he recognized as former enemies who were now collaborating on human-compatible technology projects. Elena was already reviewing her next appointment on her tablet. Huh. Says here the Dominion wants to discuss urgent defensive recalibrations. That sounds ominous. She glanced up at a security monitor showing the station's main corridor, where a figure in dark robes was moving with suspicious purpose toward her office. In the figure's hand, something small and deadly glinted. Another untouchable class missile, this one modified with what appeared to be assassination-grade targeting systems. Ooh, they brought another one of those wobbly missiles, Elena observed, returning her attention to her grocery list. Let's see. Milk, bread, that fancy cheese Mom likes. The assassin rounded the corner, raised the weapon, and fired. Without looking up from her list, Elena reached out and plucked the missile from the air, setting it gently on her desk next to her coffee cup. Bananas, she muttered, adding to her list. Almost forgot bananas. Through the office window, Ambassador Theklar watched the would-be assassin stare at his empty weapon, then at Elena, then at his weapon again. After a moment of visible existential crisis, the figure simply turned around and walked away, apparently deciding that assassination was beyond his skill set when the target treated reality as a helpful colleague. Dr. Vasquez, the ambassador said carefully, are you aware that someone just tried to kill you? Elena looked up from her list, genuinely puzzled. Kill me? When? Just now, with the missile. Elena glanced at the weapon on her desk, which was now being used as a paperweight for her takeout menus. Oh, that. I thought it was another engineering sample. Kind of rude to just fire it without asking, but some clients are impatient. The ambassador's species had evolved past the need for facial expressions, but if they hadn't, he would have been displaying what humans called complete bewilderment. The weapon was aimed at your head. Was it? Elena looked thoughtful. Well, that does seem inefficient. Heads are pretty small targets compared to, say, center mass. Poor tactical planning. She returned to her grocery list, absently spinning the assassination device like a fidget toy. You know what the real problem is with most weapons? They're designed by people who think too much about killing and not enough about user experience. Like, this thing probably has 17 different firing modes when all you really need is point and shoot. Ambassador Theklar realized he was witnessing the exact moment that defined humanity's place in the galaxy. Absolute, terrifying competence combined with complete obliviousness to their own significance. Dr. Vasquez, he said slowly, do you understand that you've fundamentally altered the balance of galactic power? Elena looked up from her list again. Have I? How? Your species has rendered our most advanced weapons useless, solved our most complex problems through methods that shouldn't work, and created a new paradigm where cooperation with reality itself is more effective than domination over it. That sounds nice, Elena said. Is cooperation working out for everyone? The ambassador gestured toward the waiting room, where former enemies were now sharing technical specifications and what appeared to be snack recipes. Better than anyone expected. Elena smiled and returned to her list. Good. Oh, and Ambassador? Your quantum drives will work much better if you ask them politely to behave instead of forcing them into compliance. Most technology responds well to positive reinforcement. As Ambassador Theklar left the office, he passed the next client, a representative of the Mechanical Collective, who wanted Elena to explain why their artificial intelligences kept developing senses of humor after extended contact with human engineers. Through the office window, he could see Elena had moved on to reorganizing her desk drawers, while the assassination missile sat contentedly among her office supplies, apparently having decided that being a paperweight was a much more fulfilling career path than exploding. The galaxy, Ambassador Theklar reflected, had become a fundamentally different place the day humans, arrived. Not because they conquered anyone or imposed their will, but because they treated the impossible as merely improbable, the improbable as merely inconvenient, and the inconvenient as something that could probably be fixed with the right attitude and maybe a decent cup of coffee. Elena was already helping her next client, explaining that their perpetual motion machine wasn't working because it was too focused on being perpetual and not focused enough on being useful when the morning's second assassination attempt arrived via temporal displacement courier. She caught that one too, without looking up from her appointment calendar. After all, she was expecting a grocery delivery later, and she didn't want to miss it.